First of all, let's talk about primary key. Think of it like an unique identifier for each row in a table. When we create a table, when we're inserting the values in the table accepts duplicate values as well. But if you don't want the values to be repeated, like in this example, I have created an example here, table here. For students, ID should be different. Then only we can identify the student. So I'm going to set it to the primary key so that if you give same values for two IDs are same, then it will give you an error. It will tell you that you should give different IDs for each student. Let me create this and let me execute and show you. So as you can see, I have created a table with student ID and the name of the student, and I'm going to insert the values into the table. If you don't know how to create a table and insert a table, you can check my part 1 video on SQL. So I'm not going to explain this again. So what's the primary key? Unique and should not be null. First of all, let's run this without a primary key. I am creating a normal table. Let's create a normal table and see. The table is created, and let me try to insert these values. This one is inserted, and Bob, it's inserted, and the one, yeah, they're inserted. Let's open this and refresh this. You can see, right? For student ID, Aditya has same student 1 as the student ID, and the Bob has the student ID as 1. And again I gave the name as Bob, and for that student ID is null. Means I didn't give any student ID. When we are taking the details of a student, when we see in colleges and all, ID is very important to identify that student details. So if it is if you didn't give that value, then what is the use of taking that? So in this case we use primary key because ID should be unique. First of all, let me drop this table. Yes, now table is dropped, and let me create. I want to set the student ID as the primary key because it is a mandatory thing. Two names of a students can be same, like one might have Aditya and the second person also might have Aditya as the name, but ID is always different for a student. So I'm going to set it as primary key. So let me create this table, and the table is created. Let me insert this value Aditya with the student ID 1. Let's see whether the data is inserted or not. Yeah, it's inserted. Now for the Bob also, I'm giving student ID as 1. Can two people have same student ID? No. So will this data be accepted by the SQL? No, you're going to get an error. See, you're going unique constraint. It means you shouldn't give 1 because already the 1 ID is taken by Aditya. So you have to give another value for it. So I'm going to give it as 2, and let me enter, and it will accept it. Let's go to the table and refresh. Yeah, it's accepted. And primary key should not be null because without ID, how can we identify whether that student belongs to that college or not? So here I am not giving the student ID, and I'm going to change this name as Grace, and let me run this. See, can't insert null into student ID. It means it will not take this Grace as the name. it will take as student ID because it is a must. Here we are getting an error because we didn't give the student ID, right? So let's change this. Let's give the student ID here and let's give the value ID of the student as 3 and let's enter this. It's inserted because this is only set to primary key, so it should not be a null. Name can be null because it's not a primary key. Let's open the table and refresh it again. See, student ID is not null and it's unique. 1, 2, 3, they are different. And name, it can be null because it's not set to primary key.